My number one rule in new business, active listen. Listen, 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 because that's when you're going to get the golden nuggets to be able to have that conversation further.
Hi, and welcome to Conversations with Julie podcast. I'm your host, Julie Gillespie. Today's podcast is with a fabulous woman that I've been friends with now for a few years, a lady called Sharon Davies. Her organization is called Sales to Success. Now, we met a few years ago, and we've always shared so many giggles and, laughing moments and touching moments and personal moments and having real conversations. And I wanted to introduce this fabulous woman that I get to see on a regular basis, because the work that she's doing isn't just about sales. That's the industry that she's in. But the way that she approaches it is just so beautiful. And coming from a background in sales and in family that's in sales, her approach just meant so much and resonated with me when I talk about mental health. So I just want to tell you a bit about Sharon. I'm just going to read from her bio. So I capture all of the elements that have made up her experience in her career. So Sharon Davies is the founder and managing director of Sales to Success. With 30 years experience in sales and management, she is a qualified CSO, so Chief Sales Officer, and delivers sales accountability and mentoring programs for individuals, teams, and business owners that sell their services in the business-to-business market. Sharon's coaching helps create a unique sales system that companies can replicate and duplicate, removing the panic, stress, and anxiety when it comes to selling and growing a business. She then teaches methodologies and the four keys to sales success to help those selling to stand out as experts and drive sales results repeatedly. The innovative program uncovers what many already know, do, but they haven't yet systemized. And we see this, and I see this so often, and giving them the confidence to sell, convert, and run a sales system, creating sustainable, repeatable sales. And she does this really well in a wholehearted way, in a way that makes selling approachable and doable and where you can feel comfortable, turning up, asking to be valued. So we go through this process of unpacking, what sales used to look like. And there's this salesy aspect, and no one wants to do that. But why is that? What's that about? But how do we then change that into being able to ask to be valued? And this isn't just for salespeople, this conversation, not at all, because we're all in situations on a really regular basis where we're having to ask to be valued or to be heard or to be able to exchange value. And so this is a great conversation. Sharon and I always have a lot of fun. There's always so much that we can talk about. And this is only one part. I hope to bring Sharon back for another conversation. So welcome. Thank you for listening today. Now let's start a conversation that can make a difference. Well, welcome in Sharon Davies. It is such a pleasure to have you in here with me. So everyone knows that Sharon and I are friends. We have been friends for a few years now. And I just want to share with everyone how we met. Because it just, every time I think about it, I just kind of get a little giggle and it just lightens my day. So Sharon and I were in a masterclass, and when they first started becoming really popular about 4 years ago, and we were sat next to each other, and it was just like, who's this person? And looking around, and we were given a couple of tasks to do, which we did fine and well, and we got chatting and all of the rest. And it got to that point in the masterclass where we knew the pitch was coming. And I think one of us turned to the other and just went, oh, here it comes.
Yeah, I did. Wait, here we go.
And I just went, oh, God, this bit. And it's just like, and we just looked at each other as if to go, oh, yay, sister in arms of, and it was just really cringy in, how they presented it. And we just got giggly about it. And, and then we had to do another conversation, and we just chatted about other things instead of what they wanted us to do. And I think that trend has continued wherever we go, of talking about everything other than what we're supposed to be talking about. Naughty school kids in the room.
Yeah, but we're up the front, not the back.
I know. We're a little bit obvious too, weren't we? We were a bit rude. But God, we had so much fun.
We did.
And every time that we catch up, we talk and talk and talk and talk. And our conversations always center in about sales because my dad's in sales. Like I used to go on the road as a kid with my dad, when he would be selling, and I love it, and I know you do too. You have an absolute passion for it. And the reason why I wanted to talk with you on the podcast about sales is because anytime that conversation comes up, weird shit happens,
Mm,
right?
yes, it does.
And we always get a bit of a giggle about it. And, then we get really upset and then we get really annoyed and then we have more conversations. So I wanted to bring that conversation in here for everyone because I want people to really know what it is that that ultimate sales conversation, and what are the conversations salespeople should be having, but who is a salesperson as well? So there's a lot of different things that I want to unpack. So thank you for coming in.
My pleasure.
Ah,
Looking forward to it.
I know, right? Like we get to go down this pathway and bring it in and share our conversations with so many other people. So I want to start in what brought you into a sales role? What was that journey like?
Wow. Now we're going right back.
Yeah, I know.
I guess just a note to hit on is that everyone's actually been selling since they were about 2. And it's something I always say that in a conversation, especially when I'm speaking or keynote speaking at conferences and that. And everyone looks at me and I go, remember when you were 2 and you really wanted that lollipop or you really wanted that, no, Mum, I don't want to do that. I want that, right? And so everyone is actually born salesperson. But what it is understanding the conversation and how to get to the next level of asking for the order, right? And so if you wanted those runners when you were a teenager, what did you do to convince your mum to get those runners for you? Sales is something that I was to be a nurse. That's what I was supposed to
Really?
be. Yeah, I was actually training. My mum was a nurse. My auntie was a nurse. So I was actually supposed to be a nurse. And going through high school and everything, it was like, yep, going to be a nurse. And then I think it was around about year 11 and I had an opportunity to do work experience in the hospital and they said, look, become an SEN and then work up to a general nurse. Well, I started working there and I started working in the emergency ward. And after about 3 weeks, I thought, this isn't for me. I was like, yeah, I actually came across a couple of things. I was like, no, this isn't for me. So my mother was very disappointed. But at the same time, I was just...
We're always going to annoy one of them.
And my father was actually in sales. So my father, it sort of comes from the background of my father. And throughout his life, Dad was working in sales. He was a sales rep. He was a sales manager. He then worked his way up. He was very much in Myers, became then sales manager, estate manager, general manager, then worked into the Walton stores, which a lot of people some people might remember. But, and so sales was always something that Dad did. And he would always talk about it to us kids all the time. And he's going, it's a great career in sales. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. Like, no, I'm just going to be a nurse. But then when the nurse thing didn't happen, what I found that I really enjoyed was helping people. And then an opportunity came to work in pharmacy and to be a sales consultant in the pharmacy. So that's how my career sort of,
Both worlds came together.
Yeah. So it sort of came in that, this is a role to work in pharmacy. And I really loved working in the pharmacy side of the medication side because I had that nurse background. So it was like, right, well, if I do that, and then all of a sudden it was like makeup, wow, hair care, wow, perfumes. And then next minute, the owner of the pharmacy started sending me to training schools. So I got to actually learn about the cosmetic industry. And then I got to learn about the hair care industry. So I actually got trained by Estee Lauder, Revlon, like a lot of the top brands of cosmetic industry. Then I started getting...
And they've got great training programs.
Great training.
Yeah.
And so I guess that's where my sales side of it. But then it became when I was at home.
Just one sec. Did you
Yeah.
realize it was sales at
No,
that point?
no. And this is where it was all about learning about the product,
Yeah.
and product and knowledge. And I always say, my saying's always that if you have the knowledge, it's the knowledge that you share and care that makes a difference for a client. And it was then that I was like, and then I started becoming good at it, that when a client came in to the pharmacy about a product, I could actually tell everything about the product, but then it was listening to what the client actually wanted and to have that conversation. So it's the active listening, which I always talk about. But then it was giving the product. And then all of a sudden I was starting to sell products naturally to them that the orders then became $100 and $200 and $300. I was like, but I was just giving what the client wanted. But I was listening and going, well, what happens is, Mr. Customer, this goes with this. So in the pharmacy side, I started working, and then the pharmacist could see, or the owner could see that I was doing really well with cosmetics. Well, let's put Sharon in the hair care side of it. So then I started learning about hair care and color. And so Wella had a fantastic training program. And mind you, I was just a consultant. I wasn't a hairdresser. It was just learning about the product. And then L'Oreal came along and I learnt about L'Oreal. Then as I was growing with the sales and becoming better, it was like, well, Sharon, now we're going to make you the team leader. Then we're going to make you this. So it was just, and then next minute I had a job offer from Estee Lauder to come and work in their Sydney branch at Newtown. So yeah, it just grew from there. But it was a conversation I could always have at home with Dad. If I had a problem, he'd say, customer service, Sharon, it's number one. Always follow up your clients, always do it. And I think it was just inbred that that's what we do. And
So to me, because I grew up with similar kind of, you know, dad, talking about sales. To me, sales as a title was a vehicle for delivering care to someone
mm, yeah,
and looking after someone's needs and being able to fill and fulfill someone's requirements that they've already come to you asking about.
yeah,
And through caring for someone and and wanting to help them and support them and help resolve whatever it is that they're needing solving, it just so happens there's a transaction that goes along with it.
correct. There is. And it's about the value. It's the value that you bring. And this is where conversations, this is why it really amazes me with sales that people go, oh no, I don't want to sell. But I'm a business owner, but I don't want to sell. And I'm going, you realize it's your responsibility. But what it is, it's,
That's why you're here, honey.
yeah. So it's like to sell, it's a responsibility that you have as a business owner and to sell a product. It's the same with when I'm training sales reps. It's your responsibility. You're working for a company, but it's your responsibility to know that product, have the knowledge and share that knowledge and find the right clientele. And this is where I think a lot of people get stuck. Oh, I don't want to be salesy.
Let's get into that
Yeah, definitely.
because this is our frustration point and part of why we're doing this conversation. What I really want to know, and I just want to kind of go back a little bit to, because I think our dads were anomalies in the sales industry because they led with care and they led with fulfilling of, someone's needs. But tell us about this old school sales process that has led people into talking about something being salesy.
Yeah, I think years ago, the way sales training was done from a lot of corporates, it was you must do this, you must do that. And I think there was a lot of aggression. And I think that years ago, there was a lot of what we used to call cowboys. They would go in, they would, and it is a saying, it's a sales cowboy.
Yep.
And people would go in there and do the wrong thing. They would do the wrong thing by clients. They would be very aggressive.
Because they're just after a number.
They're just after the figures. It was just like, I'm just after the figures. I'm an agent. I'm just commission only. I'm just going to go in there, do what I have to do, and I'm out. And that's a difference. Commission only or employing someone, but it's having the values. That's the difference. And what they would do is go in there and they would do the wrong thing by clients. But what happened was it became that, oh, that person's aggressive. They're salesy. I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be like them. I don't want to come across like that.
So what does that sales conversation, that type of sales conversation look like? Just treat me as a client coming in and it's
And I'll
like,
be salesy.
and be salesy.
I'll be aggressive.
Which would be hilarious to
Oh,
watch.
well, okay.
I'm looking at purchasing this like it's really cute.
Okay, Julie, that's on special today. That's $49.95. Is that something that you want?
Yeah, I kind of like it. But
Okay, well, we'll take that to the cash register. We'll wrap that up. And yep, do you want to pay that by credit card or do you want to pay that by ZipPay, PayPal? How does that go? What color? White? Okay, no worries. Let's pack that in the bag.
Stop.
And yeah, there you go.
It's just like, I can't breathe while you're talking like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not listening to what you want. Where it's like, so Julie, tell me about what is it that you like about this line?
Okay. We're gonna get into that part of it. So when people are thinking salesy, that's what they're thinking. Here, buy this. Okay, you're interested in it, so you must want it. So, do you want 1 or 10?
Yeah.
And so
it's like, don't waste my time.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what it is.
Right.
It's don't waste my time. Okay, do you want it? Yep, okay. And they can actually come across quite rude and not actually show any empathy or anything and have no integrity.
Because when I see that conversation a lot over the years, because being in my dad's business and having a lot of sales reps come through the doors over a lifetime, I would see that of that rudeness, but no connection to it all, and it always confused me of well, why are they doing that? And what's behind that? Have you ever spoken to someone about, why are you treating this sales process in that way?
Oh, definitely. So a lot of some of the work that I do when I'm training business development managers or account managers, I'll actually one of the things that I do is go and do assessments and evaluations. I'll go out on the road with them, which the CEOs and MDs love it because I'll actually go out on the road and then give them feedback. But I'll also ask when I'll do a couple of appointments with the BDM and then we'll do a reflection and go like, so how did you think you went? Or if we were to do that again, how would you actually do that differently? And it's really interesting, that conversation. And sometimes it can be in their mindset of where they're at the time as well. So it can be like they're having a really bad morning, but they're not thinking about the client. They're thinking about themselves, and they're not take that deep breath, before like why are we here? What is this conversation going to be about? What is the objection? So I always talk about people having, if you're going in to see a big client, and especially if it's a new business client, yes, we've got to have value, know what your value proposition is, but also what is the call plan? And someone said to me, what's a call plan? I'm like, wow.
I'm going to come to that one.
Yeah. So
because I want to get back into why does someone behave in that rude way, like that abrupt and disconnected way? Because when you're telling me about they're thinking of themselves, this is what I want others to hear about in all conversations. This isn't just sales conversations, and we know this. Yeah. When you're in any situation where you're wanting to connect with another person, so often we go in and talk at someone.
Correct. We don't talk with.
Right? And so as soon as we go into talking at someone, that's being that salesy.
Yes.
That's what that is. And we do that when we see something where we see a need or we see someone having a tough time or we see, whatever the situation where we're needing to make, get in and help someone. We do this talking at. And it's so devaluing.
Oh, definitely.
And disconnecting, rude, a number of other things. And it's just like, so people are taking that and then trying to use that bad skill set to then sell something. It's never made sense to me, but it's the same type of feeling.
And I think it's from years ago, the way the training was, sales training has changed dramatically. And even with hitting COVID, business is different now to where it was. But if I go back to, it was all about, if I go back to when I was first taught sales, especially in the corporate space, it was very much, you had to get the numbers, you had to do this, you had to do that.
Because you're in printer copier.
I was in software solutions in the copy printer industry. So I was in that for like 25 years and worked from a cadet to an account manager to BDM to senior to manager to state manager. So even having those, it was the same training. And I was like, this has got to change. This can't be the conversation.
So, what are the obstacles that type of training put in place to being able to connect in with someone?
I think it was the training then, it was very demanding. And it was very American. No offense to any Americans out there, but it was, and the way the training was like, this is the way it is.
Yeah.
But here in Australia, we're so different in the way we should be delivering training. It's not the same model. And there's a lot of companies that came out here to do a lot of training. That training just doesn't work. It's really about building trust, active listening, adding the value of what you do, and listening to what the client's challenges are.
What you're talking at is about people being trained to talk at people
Mm.
was, what you're talking about. And you're saying there's these other alternatives. So talk me through what's the alternative? Yeah.
Yeah, it's more about talking with, and it's more about just listening and having a conversation of understanding what are the challenges. Like years ago, it was all about feature, function, benefit. This was the sales methodology and the process, right? This is a feature, this is the product, this is what it does, this is the solution. Well, it's not like that. It's changed. It's really about, because so many things now in business have changed. And it's really understanding what the challenge is. Now, if I went to a CEO, like years ago, it was just tell me your problems and I'll solve them, right? That's not what it is now. It's more about understanding the challenges. So, what gets you up of a morning? What are your
Let's use
biggest,
this again.
what is the biggest challenge that you find in your business at the moment? Because it could be something that I can solve. However, I really want to understand your business. And this is like when I teach about new business, because that's my forte, and when I'm teaching business owners and BDMs, it's understanding what is it that your solution can do that can help me, And I had those conversations a lot with CEOs. I said, what annoys you when people come in here trying to sell your product? They go, they just don't understand my business. They don't understand what I do. There's such a discord. Nothing resonates the same. So why do I want to waste my time talking with them, Sharon? So it's really interesting. I said, okay. So it's always understanding what the challenge. And years ago, it was like, just tell me your pain points, like what I said before. Well, if you asked a CEO or an MD, what's your pain points? They're going to shut down. That conversation's just gone. You've lost them. But if you're meeting with them for the first time or you're meeting them at the event, so tell me about your business. What are you finding the biggest challenges, especially with COVID that's happened? Wow, you've just opened up Pandora's box. You're now having a conversation. And this is where my number one rule in new business, active listen. Listen, 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 because that's when you're going to get the golden nuggets to be able to have that conversation further. And it's taking notes. And this is where when you're having those conversations with those directors, it's, do you mind if I take notes? Yep, sure. They actually respect that, and this is where a lot of people go, oh, it's that simple. It's a simple basic 101. Take notes. Okay, because that's your open-ended questions for any objection or anything to take the conversation further, because then you're building value.
Mm. And clearly valuing what they're saying by putting it in writing.
Absolutely. And it's showing integrity. It's showing empathy. It shows that you care. What that does also, it builds trust. It starts building trust that they're then taking and going, wow, she's really listening. Like I still have CEOs to this day that started with me years ago that will ring me off the cuff and go, hey, Sharon, I've got a new team that I'm forming. I really want to get your opinion on this. Okay, well, tell me that challenge that you got with them at the moment. Well, this is what's happening. Okay, well, what I would do maybe as a suggestion, only a suggestion, maybe let's look at this. But you know what? Let me think about that. Let me come back with an email with some process around that of what I think would work for you. Straight away, when that happens, they just go, wow, Sharon, can I catch up with you in June so then we can sit down and have more about this conversation? So, and I'm like, that's okay. I'll send it through to you, process it, and then we'll talk further.
Because all of the things you're saying are what I talk to people about when having any conversation with someone, who's having a tough time. Because what you're saying is that your client's having a tough time with something. And it's just figuring out what that is in a way that says to them, hey, I'm here and I'm valuing what you're saying. I'm ready to listen. I've turned up and I'm ready to listen. And I want to know what it is that's causing you trouble. It's that exact same conversation. That's why I love this.
Exactly. It's the same conversation. And that's why when I talk about my methodology and framework and I talk about the 4 Cs, and we'll
Yes.
touch on that. The 4 Cs, I call it, communication. So, and under each one of those modules that I have on my 4 Cs is the module to do with the framework of the processes of sales. But it's conversation is the number one. The second is the clarity.
Yeah.
It's clarity around everything with your message,
Yep.
and then it's being consistent. It's showing up, follow up, and then it's the commitment. It's your responsibility of what is your commitment. Now, those 4 Cs, when I wrote that paper and I use that in everything with the sales, and then I talk about my 5 steps of winning new business. Each one of those modules with the 4 Cs correlates with my 5 steps of new business. If those 4 Cs, if you look at any industry, they've all got one of those Cs, all 3 of those Cs, where it's about communication, clarity, consistency. I think sometimes they forget about the commitment.
Oh,
It's,
yeah.
that's the one. So, but mind you, they can't copy what I've done, right?
No. No,
But it's the same thing. Doesn't matter what you do, what industry,
but that's
they're
not
the
talking
same
about
things.
sales, Sharon.
No, not at all.
That's not a sales process. I know you've got your back end, which makes it into and translates it into a sales process. I know that. But those 4 Cs, they're not a sales process whatsoever. They're just being human.
Correct. It's showing the human side of you, but it's about the conversation. And it doesn't matter what you do, it's the same thing, whatever industry. Same with the sporting industry. I mean, I came from netball career, and same thing when I would do training with the girls and at very high levels, same thing. Guys, it's the communication, how you communicate.
Being
It's
clear and transparent on everything.
absolutely, it's being consistent. It's being committed, coming to training. You want to be on this squad?
Show up.
That's it. Same thing, same process.
Right. Because this is why I wanted to bring a sales conversation into what I do. I mean, it to a lot of people, it's like, this isn't going to make sense. Julie's mental well-being, like, how does sales come into that?
Mm.
I think people now can understand why it comes into it. Hey, it's Julie here. I thought we'd just take a quick break. I just wanted to say thank you for listening, and I'm glad you're here with us. It would mean the world to me if you could support this podcast by leaving a review, following it, or sharing it with someone you want to start a conversation with. Now, back to the conversation.
Oh, definitely. And I think too that, with salespeople also need a lot of support as well. So when you're going out there, and I'll talk about the two difference. There's and we call in the industry in sales, they'll have a sales hunter and then they'll have a sales farmer. And it used to be years ago, you were either a farmer or a hunter. Now, what it was is that you're either a new business person and you love going out there, breaking into new accounts and winning new accounts. There's Julie putting her hand up. And then you had the other sales rep that was more of, I really just like to look after existing clients and I like to just grow that existing. So it was like
relationship builder.
the relationship builder, where the hunter's more of, I want to get in, I'll build it, I'm really good at that, and then I'll hand it over to an account manager to manage. So there's really a difference between a hunter and a farmer, right? And I used to hate those methodologies. It was like you either love new business or you prefer to look after existing clients. But even sales reps need support and leadership of how to process things. And this is where that's also a value of the leaders and the managers of how they manage it. Because sometimes years ago in management, it was very much, they're not doing their job, so let's get rid of them, right? They're not doing this, let's get rid of that. And it's like, excuse me, but that sales rep just brought in, $200,000 worth of business. Oh no, they haven't done anything for 4 weeks. Like, let's churn and burn. And the sales rep would then go, well, what have I done wrong? So there's those conversations as well. So even though you've got to say, you also need to have support for your sales team and understand. So as business owners and leaders, we need to also listen to those conversations as well and guide them. And this is where having training and sometimes having someone outside of the business, not in the business,
Oh, yeah.
can really help to bring. And that's where the value of what you also do, Julie, it's understanding those conversations and what does it look like? Because when you're doing new business and you're selling all the time, it is. And sometimes it's like, I'm exhausted, I need a break. And this is where it's something that I always, when I'm training and coaching with the reps, it's like you offer so much value, but you also need to have time out. You also need to turn the phone off.
Because sales is frontline. Sales is,
Hence why my book's going to be Frontline Sales, right?
I love it. That's going to have to come out now. You've told everyone about it.
I know it is.
We want to relate this to how any of us can ask to be recognized for the value that we bring. So what I see a lot is, and people say, Julie, you're so confident, you just get what you want. And it's like, no, I ask for what I want. And that's not about confidence. It's like, I know my value. I'm old enough now that I can say, yeah, I know my value and it not seem ego. That's not ego. I know my skill set. I've worked hard for that skill set. But I'm also happy to say, you know what, I see it as this value and I understand this to be true. And I'll ask for it. And a lot of people go, well, how are you doing that? And so for any person, whether it's getting a new job, whether it's asking a partner to be heard about something, whether it's in a friendship when you're trying to negotiate new ground, whatever that is, or asking for new business or in a sales role, it's all this similar kind of stuff, right? Of I'm wanting to bring my value and have it valued.
Absolutely. And you do need to understand the value. And when I do a lot of coaching, a lot of business owners, that sometimes they don't understand the value that they bring. So when I start coaching with them and we're having those conversations, I said, do you realize the value that you bring for a client? And they're like, oh, no, I'm not. No, I'm not that good.
I've got this great product.
I've got this product. I'm going, but do you understand? And this is what I, as a sales strategist, I sort of look at it and go, but do you understand how much income and value that can save a client? And sometimes they just go, oh, can you explain that, Sharon? And then when I go through that process and I go, understand the value that you're worth. When I also work with sales reps, it's like, know the value. So I'll help some people also, like when they're going for their interviews and helping them prepared, especially if it's a sales role, and the questions to ask, and make sure that it's the right client, it's the right company for them to work, and also that their values align. And it's something that we talked about yesterday. You've got to make sure that you're picking the right company, just not because it's a job and it's an income. You've got to make sure that it aligns with your values.
So when you're wanting to ask for something, if you're wanting to be valued, you're only going to get that sense of being valued when there's value alignment, right?
Correct. It's got to be aligned.
No matter if your values aren't in alignment, if there's not a connection, if there's not resonance, which we talk about a lot, if there's not resonance, your value might not even translate into any value to that person, or that person might value it, but the way that they value you doesn't make any sense to you, and therefore you're never going to feel satisfied. Yeah. And so we need to, when there is discord, when there is that lack of connection, we need to go, oh, okay, well, this mightn't be the right place. It's got nothing to do with your value.
Correct.
And as a salesperson, or as any person coming in wanting to ask to be valued, we need to realize that someone else's reaction to what you're bringing has got nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But you need to ask about that. You might go, you know what? I'm feeling like this isn't translating. Can I ask, are you feeling like this doesn't resonate? And they might just go, you know what? I'm busy at the moment. My head's still over here. But wow, wouldn't that be a great question to ask for anyone? Because then you're realizing that they're distracted. It's got nothing to do with you. They're not devaluing you, and you don't have to take that stuff personally.
And I think at the moment, and especially with COVID, that's happened, business has changed. A lot of companies actually saw it as, oh, great, I'm going to clean out teams. I'm going to get rid of people. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do redundancies and that. And then what's happened 2 years later, and I'm seeing that it's happening quite a lot, all of a sudden those companies are trying to rehire again. But because of what's happened in the past, it's now they're like, people are now, oh no, I'm choosing to go elsewhere. No, that didn't align with me, so I'm not going back. and there's a lot of conversations happening, but also there's so much choice at the moment, and people are choosing which roles that they go for. So it's very much, well, if I don't want to do that, I don't have to. And, I just recently had a conversation with a client where they've lost a couple of sales reps, and they're like, all that training, and they've just gone. And I go, but what's happening with the company, the organization? What is it that they're doing? And they're not moving with the times. They're still staying in old school from, 4 or 5 years ago. They're
Here's
not
your KPI. Why haven't you
correct.
had a,
And it's like,
bang, bang, bang.
yeah. And there's a lot of other companies out there that are offering quite a lot of income for people to come across. But money is not necessarily the right choice. It's really the values and the alignments. And that's where I think people are not looking at that at the moment. And they're not wanting to go back in the office. And it's really, I know that the CEOs that know me, they'll be listening to this going, oh, Sharon, how do I get people to come back in the office? And it's more of because they've paid for all this space.
Ask them.
Ask them. That's it. Have that question. But they're like, we've paid for all this space. We're paying all this lease, and they don't want to come back in. And I go, but maybe it's about splitting and working out, 3 days in the office, 2 days at home,
but thinking of
and
that
slowly bringing it back in.
But thinking
into
of it
place.
that way is trapping them too. Because I've made this decision, therefore you're going to have to just comply.
Yeah.
I've loved our conversation, and I know we could talk for more and we could talk for hours on this, but I'm also wanting to maybe bring you back another time, and we can do that. But I've got 3 questions that I ask all of my guests. And just to kind of wrap us up and to kind of snapshot with where we're at. So my first question is, fill in the blank. A conversation can
empower you to have success.
Because that's not just sales, that's everything.
That's everything.
I so sit in that. Empower you to have success. I so sit in that. I love that. So what has been the greatest lesson, good or bad, that you've learned about having a conversation?
Oh, that's a good question. I think the story I told you the other day about when I first came from Melbourne to Brisbane, and I lost a defence contract, and I had the Senior Sergeant Major, Alan Harwood, I'll never forget him, tell me why I lost the deal. It was a $250,000 deal, and I said to my manager, yeah, I'm going to get this deal, and he told me why. So that was quite interesting. So I think that was the biggest lesson of I just didn't listen. I was very naive as a salesperson.
And it was a talking at moment.
It was talking at. And that was probably the biggest lesson that I learned. Mind you, I was in my early 20s.
Good time to learn that lesson.
Yeah, which is a good lesson, but I was talking at, not talking with. And he was probably my biggest inspiration, became one of my best mates. Did I win the next defence contract after that? Absolutely.
Well, you learned to talk with and you built a relationship.
Absolutely.
So that lesson is talk with someone.
Correct.
Think of the relationship before the outcome.
Yeah.
Okay. What is something you would like others to know about having difficult conversations?
That it's okay. That if there is a difficult conversation, just know that if you're aligned with the right person to have that conversation with, that if you need to speak to an expert, speak to an expert to help you. I think that would be...
Sometimes get help.
Yeah, get help, ask for help. And I think, and it's okay to ask for help.
Oh, God, yeah.
I think that, and I know from my career, it's, there's been many a times where I haven't asked for help. And I think it's knowing who to go to. And I think going to friends and family sometimes is not the right answer. Go and get help, because sometimes you can listen to everyone's opinions and actually get really mind-boggled with it all, that you go, gee, should I do this? Should I do that? What if I do this? What if I do that? Really ask for help. Makes a difference, makes a big difference.
Having a mentor or a therapist or, a coach, someone who can just say, well, what's your voice telling you? And let's empower that voice and find out why that needs to be given a little bit more meaning, and who are you actually going to trust to speak into your life? That was one of my greatest lessons early on, is who are you going to allow to speak into your life? Because there's way too many people.
Definitely. And I think it's, as I said, align, it's resonate, and having people around you that support you, that understand you, that know what you do and what you're about, and that it's okay. it's absolutely okay to ask for help.
I love that. And thank you so much for sharing all of who you are.
Oh, thank you, Jules.
And
My pleasure.
yeah, I really appreciate the work that you do in the industry that you're at, but it just correlates and translates into every industry because it's just simply about having a conversation. It's very strategic. It's not strategic in an ego way. It's very whole person. And I love that because you are there to fulfill a need because you care. And that's actually what sales is, people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I look forward to another conversation and working with you more as we move forward. So thanks for sharing it.
Thank you. My
See ya.
pleasure. Bye.
Well, thank you for listening to that podcast, to that conversation with Sharon Davies. I love chatting with her about sales. I come from a background in sales. My dad's been in sales and I've been on the road with him selling from really, young age. And I love sales when it's done in a way where we're filling a need, helping someone to achieve something that they've wanted to achieve, resolving problems and all of that. And it's just so beautiful to hear it articulated so beautifully the way that Sharon Davies only can do. There are a couple of things that I want to kind of sit in and just and highlight is the 4 C's that Sharon Davies was talking about. Sharon's just pinpointed these 4 things that all conversations, all people, all organizations, we're not just talking about sales industry here, we're talking about humans, where we can communicate. We need to use our words, people. And, being able to make sure that we're clear in that and we're presenting all that there is to communicate, but making sure we're also then listening and making sure what we're communicating is what that person wants to hear. Because it's a two-way street. Communication is a loop. It's not singular in direction. Then creating clarity. Being able to be really clear and asking for clarity. Is this what you mean? Is this what you're talking about? Is this what you're asking for? What's that going to look like for you? What's the reality? What's the outcome? Like that creating of clarity is really important. Because, as Brené Brown says, to be clear is to be kind. It's such an important element, in this process. Consistency, that 3rd C. Consistency, consistency, consistency. Keep turning up. Keep being present. Keep on point. Keep within your lane of what it is that you do. Keep working within your values. Be consistently working within your values. And then commitment. Stay the course. Be committed. Turn up. It's such an important aspect of it. Yes, this works incredibly well for sales, like absolute guaranteed success. But as a business leader, as someone who cares for people, to show my commitment, to show that I'm turning up is just so valuable. There's so much to this conversation. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. To find out more about Sharon, you can check her out at Sales to Success. She does a lot of events, a lot of videos. She gives so much, to the conversation around sales and sales strategy and business strategy. I really recommend that you connect and be a part of her village. She's amazing. She networks so beautifully. She's the queen of it. I love it. And if there's more that you want to ask her, and have conversations about this, please do, because it's an important topic. And if you enjoyed this conversation, I'd love to hear it. So please do leave a review, leave a comment. We'll always get back to those. If you want to know more, please do email us and get in touch. And thank you for listening, and share this with someone that you want to start a conversation with. Thank you.